If you have an interest in horses and love learning more about horses, the horse industry, teaching, or even managing your own horse business, then you're in the right place. We would love you to join us on our mission, which is to improve the lives of horses around the world through the education of riders, handlers, and trainers. So get comfortable, listen in, and enjoy.
We're delighted to have Christoph Hess back again today. Christoph has been a previous guest. He was on chat number 702. And if you'd like to go back and listen to that, I would urge you just to get a little bit more knowledge about Christoph, about him changing the equestrian world one conversation at a time, which we did talk about. Certainly he's just got so much knowledge. And today we're going to talk about 10 essential small steps which every rider has to do to develop their skills. Now, are you there, Christoph? How are you today?
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm very happy. Yesterday and the day before a late entry competition, a little bit to organize at my son's place at, we say in Germany, Hofbettenrode. It's south of Hanover, the region where the Hanoverians are at, and it's a very big stable my son has. And we had our second late entry competition at his place because, as you know, in Germany and all over the world, we have the coronavirus, and therefore everything is not totally shut down, but was shut down for a couple of weeks here in Germany, in the center of Europe. And now it starts a little bit, but without spectators. And we did now the second competition. So therefore, I'm back at home at Warendorf, capital of horses in Germany, where I'm living since about 40 years. And ready to go to speak with you in Queensland, which is great. I love it. I was there in Brisbane 2 times years ago, and it's one of the most amazing and wonderful places in the world I've ever been. And therefore, it's good that we have a big distance, and the communication systems helps us to communicate as we were sitting together in one room. But it's as it is, and good to go. And maybe I look out of my window, and in Germany it's the morning, we have afternoon, and we have rain, which is great. We had April and May, not enough rain, and now the last days, a lot of rain, which is really good for the farmers' agriculture rate, so that they hope they will get a good harvest starting in July. So that's the situation.
Good. Look, we've just had a shower of rain. It's certainly not dry here, and the shower of rain just freshens things up and makes the grass look even greener. So nice to have that odd shower every now and then. Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, absolutely.
How is the coronavirus at yours? Is this a big problem, or is the government able to control this virus?
I think it's always a problem. I think right around the world it's a problem. We're very lucky in Queensland at the moment. We only have 5 active cases. And, those 5 active cases are in quarantine, and none of the active cases are anywhere near me. So, that to me, it's very lucky. But certainly my heart goes out to people in some countries where it's just, out of control. I think that it's just horrific.
And what about the horse world? It's going on with competitions, or is this shut down?
We're just starting to get things back into motion now. After a long holiday, yes, and we can do certain sports. I think our current limit is 20, but you can have 20 in different groups. So it's not really like FEI competitions, but it's certainly... We're working towards it, and people are training at home and being a bit inventive too with the training, using Zoom a little bit and coaching with, I was just talking to John McLean yesterday, and he said he's going to start doing Zoom consultations, where someone might be videoing the horse on a live stream, and then he can talk to the person that's riding the horse and, come back, do it again and try this. Yeah. So I think it teaches us to be a little bit inventive. Yeah. All right. Now, we can start with these, and I know you say very small steps, but some of these steps can be huge for people if they don't have an understanding of what you mean. You talk about the horse's nature, and everyone thinks that they understand the horse's nature, but I think, of all the people in the world, you're one of the people that really understand the horse's nature with so much more knowledge. So, and the other thing is too, These small steps, which every rider has to do to develop their skills. We talk a lot about the foundation training of the horse, but are these the foundation training for the rider?
Yeah, I think that's very important. Although I think we horse people talk very much about horses all the day, nature, what you are saying, nature of the horse, how to train horses, how to ride difficult horses, and so on and so on. And you're totally right. And we often don't talk enough to the rider, the skills the rider has to have. And we have to realize that at the end of the day, the horse is a mirror of the rider. And the better the rider is sitting, which means the better the rider is in balance and is supple in the saddle and mentally and physically supple. That's, from my point of view, very, very important. The better he is able to have a good position, the better he is able to train his horse, the more horse-friendly he is, to be honest. Not a rider is horse-friendly who is sitting against the movement, who is sitting to the wrong side when he is turning right, sitting left, and so on, and is not balanced in the saddle. Then he needs the reins to balance his body in the saddle. All these things are, to be honest, not good for horses. So therefore, when you want to be a horse friend, and I think all of us, all horse people would say, yes, we are horse friends. And when you are a true horse friend, then you have to use your fingers in your direction, that you first start to think, what can I do better when I handle my horse from the ground or when I'm sitting in the saddle? Those is important. The handling from the ground and how I keep the horses 24 hours a day. And the second thing is, what do I do with my horse when I'm sitting in the saddle? And many people think sometimes, okay, when I handle them nicely with carrots and grass and things like this so that they are happy, I think the best way to make the horse happy is to ride them properly and in a nice, horse-friendly way so that the horse loves the work. And the riders have to motivate the horses, but they always have to do it and have to think, what is the best way to motivate the horse? And the understanding is important. The horse is not born that the rider is sitting on him or her. But when we are sitting on the horse, we have to realize from the rider's point of view that we are a guest. We are not at home. When we visit a guest in his house, in his flat, then we have the situation of a guest. And this is what I think is important, that we realize when we are sitting on the horse that we are guests on the back of the horse in the saddle. And I think, therefore, from my point of view, it's very, very important that we realize, that we have to thank, maybe it sounds a bit sentimentally, that we have to thank our Father that we have lovely animals on earth, and we have the responsibility that they have a good life on earth. And when we are saddled, that we train them so that they are happy, when we train them, that they love what we are doing with them. That's for me important. And that we think into the direction, what can we do as much as possible to become better riders? It's not important that we are all world-class riders. That is not possible, but that we try as horse-friendly as possible. And this is looking from the welfare point of view for horses. That's very, very important, looking from this point of view as well. The better we are sitting, the better we are supple and balanced in the saddle, the more horse-friendly we are riding, the better for the welfare of the horse. And the better we are doing this, the less the horse will be in the hospital, because of illness or orthopedic problems. So the less we need veterinarians. And I think that's very important. And I think very important is that we realize that we have to train us, and this is something we have to do as proper skills, but I think very important is as well that we realize that the way we talk about horses is very important. In the German language, we sometimes can say, oh, that's a Gaul, Gaul, Gaul. When we in north part of Germany, where I'm living, talk about a Gaul, it's like saying, oh, that's a nigger. It's not a black person, it's a nigger, something like this. And therefore, we have to realize that we talk in a nice way about horses, because talking and feeling and thinking is very close connected. And therefore, I think it is important that we talk in a good way about horses, in a friendly way, but we have to respect that horses are not human with four legs, especially in the situation in which we're living now. And what the generations before us are more nature-orientated, like the Aborigines. I think the more rural-orientated, nature-orientated people have another feeling for animals, and therefore we have to train these skills together with the skills we need as techniques when we are sitting in the saddle.
Okay. So this understanding of the horse's nature, what do you think is the most misunderstood part of the horse's nature?
Yeah, I think the most, I often have the situation that many people think that horses are very close to the nature of us, and that many people don't realize that horses are still horses when they're in the stable and when they are maybe easy to ride and kind of a friend of them, but they are still horses with their nature. And yeah, I think many people we have to realize most of the people who have horses are women, and sometimes these kind of women think that the very best friend in their life is not the husband or the boyfriend or the former boyfriend or former husband or kids. Are the horses. And that's nice from one point of view, but from the other point of view, it's sometimes not realistic. And therefore, they have to realize that this is a very special situation, because a horse is not a human partner. And this is what we have to realize, that the people respect the nature of the horse and respect the personality of the horse. And horses have very different personalities as we as well. So therefore, this is something that we have to realize. This is what we have to train, looking from the trainers and instructors and riding teachers and coaches' point of view, that this is something we have to teach.
Okay. Now, people learning to ride, I know that there's some schools of thought that you specialise early, but I know that you like to think that if you're riding, you learn to ride in all disciplines. Can you talk to us about when you mean all disciplines, but why are we riding in all disciplines? What benefits are there? Say we plan to be a Grand Prix dressage rider. What benefits are they to the rider and to the horse of riding in other disciplines? Taking the horse out hacking, popping over a jump, things like that.
Yeah, first of all, we have to realize, and it's the same thing with humans as well, when we start with horses, and it's a similar thing with riders as well, we have to think kindergarten, primary school, and then high school, or we have to go through these different levels in different schools. And when we look, we as humans have to learn in kindergarten more social skills, and in the primary school social skills, which is very important, that the teacher has this as a true goal, and different subjects. And I think that's very important. The more subjects we learn, the more we realize what are our talents, what are our challenges, where we are weak. But we need a lot. And I think it would be a disaster if we only would learn reading or writing or counting or things like only one thing. And this is for me very important. The more we learn in the beginning as a rider, the better our elasticity is, our mobility is, the more horse-friendly we are, the better our balance is. And especially when we are riding, we have to realize that horses are not like a bicycle. I sit on the bicycle and I drive. But horses can make a jump, they are tense, they are spooky. And when I am not able to sit on a horse with spooky and jumps a little bit when it's afraid, a little bit into the direction of a rodeo horse sometimes, and then I'm brave enough. Then I always try to control the horse. And we humans always try to control because we are very much hand-oriented. We start to control everything with our hands. And when we start to control with hands, we do a terrible mistake looking from the horse's point of view. Why? Because then we stimulate the flight instinct of the horse. The more we control with our hands, the more the horse will run away and the more the horse will do stupid things. And the better we are balanced in the saddle. And balance we learn not just on the flat. Balance we are able to learn on the flat, but over fences, cross country, up and down, a little bit hilly situations outside. And all these situations to ride different horses, really different soft horses and pure warm blood horses. And I like very much the idea to ride either with racing saddle, which you with the jockeys need to use for Melbourne Cup, and eventing cross country saddles and show jumping saddles and dressage saddles, so you get a feeling with extremely short stirrups as a jockey, short stirrups as maybe eventing rider, cross country, not as short as cross country, a little bit longer show jumping stirrups, and show jumping, and then longer stirrups riding dressage, and then put the stirrups away, ride without stirrups. I like very much giving longing lessons because I think that's the best way to concentrate, to sit properly in the saddle, because many people don't have enough focus to get position the saddle into the direction of 10.0. I think too many people around the world, all over down under and Europe and America and the parts in the world I know, many people think, okay, I just ride a little bit and then I get my very first own horse and then I'm a good rider and then I do it. And this is not in the beginning. You need very much into the direction of long lessons. And when you look to Vienna, Spanish riding schools, and this is historical since hundreds of years, and they have a very special focus on their way of riding, how to learn in the beginning. We say Eleve, and they get, I think, 4 years long lessons on well-trained horses, and to learn to sit. And as an example, when the coronavirus situation started, I had just a couple of days before a question call from California, and they asked me, Christoph, when are you coming to America next time? And you come to us in our place. And I am a Grand Prix rider, and my daughter is a Grand Prix rider, and on the way to become a Grand Prix rider, and we love to get lessons from you. Okay, fine. And then the lockdown came, no planes to America, and all these problems as we have still. And then I said, okay, maybe I can give you some online lessons. And then I did it, and it works amazing. I did it a lot of online lessons in US and mainly in with this lady in California, but in other parts meanwhile as well. And it was amazing to see the daughter. She is 17 years old. I never had seen her. A brilliant young rider on level, I would say, intermediate one into the direction of Grand Prix. And she is 17 years old, really good. And she has an amazing position and a wonderful understanding. And I had given the online lessons, and I've never seen her before. And I've given her at least 30 online lessons, at least, meanwhile. And she has such a lovely, how can it work that you are sitting in such a good way? And it's really easy to train a rider who is trained into the right direction. It's always a challenge for me, a true challenge to train people who are on the wrong way, terrible wrong way. It's very difficult to school them because they have another understanding. When I say black, they understand white. And when I say white, they understand black. It's really difficult. But this girl, or a young lady, 17 years of age, turning 18 at the end of this year, was so lovely in the way she was riding. And then I said, how can it work that you are riding in this nice way? And then she said, yes, my mother had schooled me 4 years longing lessons. And this is a challenge, 4 years. It's such a long time. And that's the challenge for the instructor. Why? Because he has to motivate the rider to give him or her an understanding how important it is to be trained for such a long time in longing lessons. And this is for me very, very important that our riders, mainly the riders we have now, and the next generation will get an understanding how important it is to get this kind of lessons, because we have at the end of the day scale of training for horses and we have a scale of training for riders as well. And then we have to work in very, very small steps, really in the same direction as we are using the scale of training for riders, so that at the end of the day, as a result, the riders and the horses are balanced and supple and mentally and physically supple. That is for me the goal for both. The red line is a scale of training for horses, and the red line is a scale of training for riders. And at the end of the day, as a goal, the highest goal which we have is the harmony between the horse and the rider, or the rider and the horse.
Okay, great. And I love hearing stories about that girl, 4 years lunge lesson. Yeah. Christoph, we have a term, dressage trainers and riders talk about the horse being in front of the driving aids. Now, we're not talking about driving with a carriage, we're talking about driving within riding. But for someone who's coming into this, hasn't heard that conversation or isn't familiar with it, if we talk about having the horse in front of the driving aids, as a judge, what are we looking for? As a coach, how are we training it? And as a rider, how's it going to feel to have a horse in front of the driving aids?
Yeah, that's a very good question, because this is one of the main key points we have to work on. And this is part of the general understanding what's important in the training of horses. This is important in all different disciplines on all levels. And this is something a rider has to learn quite often as well, quite early in his education and training, how to bring a horse in front of your driving aids and what kind of aids you have to give. And I think we have to understand how the body of the rider is, we have to get a true understanding for the body of the rider. And we have to realize that we humans are, what did it say earlier, are hand-orientated. When we are sitting on the horse, we have to be leg and position-orientated, which means that we do as less as possible with our hands, that we, what I love to say, just use our hands, fingers, to listen into the horse's mouth. Why? Because this is the most sensitive part, and the mouth is a kind of a mirror of the horse's soul. And the more we have the sensitivity to realize with sensitivity how the feeling of the horse is, the better we come to a harmony with our horses, with our hands. So, but how can we use it? How do we have to use our body? I love to say our body, and a very important part is our legs. I think we have to be supple, very supple in the pelvis. We have to swing into the horse's movement, and we have to do both to bring the horse in front of our aids. We have to swing with the horse's movements. That's important. Therefore, the flexibility in the pelvis is important. And that's the second part. We have to, this is something which is passive and active exercise. And we have to try to make the movements a little bit, the feeling has to be a little bit bigger, as maybe the horse would have if we wouldn't sit on horseback. To make them bigger, that has to be our feeling in our head. And therefore, we have to swing in a nice way into the horse's movement. I always say, I repeat it now, in a passive and in an active way. First passive, and then when we have the right feeling, then we have to make it a little bit more active. So, and now the second comes, and this situation, bring the horse in front of us, in front of the driving aids. It's very, very important that we get the right feeling how to use our legs. This is for me the most important part, using the legs. And we have to learn very early in our education and our training program as a rider. We have to learn that when we use our legs, there has to be a response from the horse's side immediately. And I want to underline the word immediately. If it is not immediately a response, then something is wrong. So therefore, we have to realize that the horse has to be very sensitive to our driving aids when we use our legs. And we have to use, and I like it, in Germany we always say Schenkel, which is the lower part of the leg. And I like in the English language very much the word leg, because it's the whole leg which we use. And when I give lessons, I always talk about the German word for leg is Bein. The whole part of the leg has to work. This is important. And the young rider has to learn. And to be honest, many riders who ride since ages, they don't have the right feeling to bring the horse in front of the driving aids. And a good exercise is halt and then start from halt to walk. And try this. And I think when you try this with a lot of riders, you will see that many riders, they need the spurs. They don't have the heels at the deepest point. They bring the heels up and then spurs in, and then they don't give a clear advice to the horse to go. And they try it like sitting like a monkey. If a monkey is sitting on a horse, the monkey will use the legs not to fall down. But we have to be very supple with our legs. And when we use the driving aid, the legs has to come to the horse's body just for a second. And then in this situation, the horse has to move. And if you want to come from halt to walk, the horse is not moving immediately, then we have to do it a second time or a third time. But very consistently, and say go immediately. And if not, then a second time, a third time, and second and third time with more energy. And if this is not working, then a good advice as well, and I think this works with many horses, then use a short whip at the shoulder. In this situation, that the horse will realize that when the leg is coming, the horse has to move immediately from halt to walk. And if the horse in this situation starts trot, for instance, which would be great, it is more an overreaction, but it's positive. It's positive overreaction. It's a positive mistake. And this is to realize that in this situation, we never ever should use the brain to stop the horse. No, we have to say go, and then start to trot a little bit, and then come back to walk. This is for me very, very important to realize this. And this is something we have to do and have to train. And I repeat, the exercise to come from halt to walk is the first step that the rider will realize in a positive way that he has a horse in front of his driving aids. If there is not immediately a reaction, then you will or has to realize, and this is what the trainer has to explain the rider and the coach has to explain the rider, that then, to be honest, the horse is not truly in front of him or her.
Okay. Well, I think very well explained. I think if people didn't quite get that, this is the sort of information they can go back to and listen again and just make sure, and you place so much emphasis on the halt to walk, just getting the horse to move forward and response immediately. But a similar way, can you explain, we talk about riding smooth transitions and people might think that, I just drop my rein and say woo and the horse slows down to walk. But, it's not quite that. But the riding smooth transition. So as a judge, what are you looking for ideally to give a 10, 9, 10? You're looking for something that's really, really good. What are you looking for? Then as a trainer, what would you say, coach, to achieve this? But as a rider, how's this riding smooth transitions going to feel?
It's another very, very good question because I think the transitions are the spirit of good riding. And when I'm looking from a judge's point of view, I have to say that's very important when you watch a rider riding a transition, very important. But then you can see who is a rider with a good feeling and who is a rider who has a bad feeling. And I would say a rider who is using the reins and is using his hands or her hands is a rider who is not a horse-friendly rider, and that's a rider who is riding against the nature of the horse, and that's, if I do it black and white, this would be a bad rider. And a good rider is a rider who is able to give the reins in the transitions, and I will explain now why. When a rider, I start with a negative situation. If a rider is using in the transitions the reins, which many, many riders are doing, that's a misunderstanding of riding half horse and total horse. Because when you use your reins, it is first what I did say several times, it's against the nature of the horse because the horse is a flight animal. I will repeat it. And the more you use the reins, the more the horse will run away because or is doing other negative things because the horse has a bad feeling. And horses always want to have good feelings and not bad feelings. So that's one thing against the nature. He's riding against the nature of the horse. The second thing is, and this is for me very important, you are riding against the biomechanics of the horse because when you use the reins, you stop the swinging from the hind legs over the back, through neck, pull into the horse's mouth. When you now use the reins, this way of moving from behind over the back is negative. So therefore, for me, it's very, very important that you, from the rider's point of view, realize this, that when you use the reins in the transitions, that you are in the same time are stopping the hind legs. And then in this situation, the hind legs are not coming from behind more and more into the direction of the center of gravity. Therefore, when you want to ride a good transition, looking from the judge's point of view, you have to give marks for transitions, and we have in all our FEI tests, and I'm sure in your national tests as well, and we have it in Germany as well. We give special marks for transitions, maybe after extended canter, after extended or medium trot. And this is great that we have these special marks. I want to see that the rider is able at the end of a diagonal to give both reins. And in this situation, the horse has the ability to come with hind legs more under the center of gravity. And in this situation, the horse is able to carry more weight with the hind legs than with the front legs. And that's the situation. That's the goal of a good transition. So therefore, that's for me the spirit of good riding when the rider is able in a transition to give both reins so that the hind legs are working more and more under the center of gravity. That's the point. The question now, how can we train this? And to be honest, I never talk about half horse and total horse because I think when I teach this, many people think, oh, now I have to use my reins, because when you look to the definition of half and total hauls, but mainly half hauls, you hear something what you have to do with your reins, and okay, then they say, okay, you have to use your seat and you have to use your legs. That's true, but always something with your reins. And I think when you say something into the direction of using the reins, the riders at the end of the day don't always think, oh, I have to do something with the reins, which is typical for humans because we are hand orientated, and then forget to use legs and position and their weight, to use the weight in the proper way. Therefore, I school very much when I'm schooling transitions. It's I would say 90% of the training session of most of the riders to make the horse, the German word durchlässig, supple, to make the horse as supple as possible. But it's more than suppleness. Durchlässigkeit. It's that the horse is willing to listen to the rider as a partner, not as a slave. I want to say this. And therefore, for me, it's very important to do this so that the horse will learn it. And I like very much to do it with a little bit in the beginning, young horses, a little bit with leg yielding. And in the transition, but you have to train leg yielding before. And then I give advice, use a little bit leg yielding in the transition. Later on, ride the transitions in the way of shoulder in. Use it. Then you have the horse straight, and then you bring the inside hind leg into the direction of the outside front leg. And this is the situation when the horse is a little bit more sitting with the hind legs and comes a little bit more with the inside hind leg under the center of gravity. And this is for me very important, so that the horse is able to carry a little bit more weight with one hind leg. And then when you do it from the other side with the other hind leg, that's from the gymnastic point of view, very, very useful. And this is a movement or an exercise I like very much. And that's for me the best way to school smooth transitions. First, I repeat, thinking I want to ride leg yielding, and in the second step, a little bit higher level, I want to ride shoulder in. That's for me the best way to school smooth, and I like the word smooth transitions. So as we spell it and as we speak it, smooth. And when I teach, I teach with words and not write the transitions. Or no, try to write a very, very smooth transition to give the rider a little for the feeling, and the rider has to get a feeling for this feeling, and this needs a lot of time. And he has to ride, or she has to ride different horses, because all horses are different in riding transitions. So therefore, the better the rider is able to get the right feeling, the better he or she will ride these kind of transitions. And this is for me a very, very high goal in the education and training program of riders.
Okay, now you've talked about it before, about how the rider should be sitting balanced and supple. And all riders want to do that, to sit balanced and supple. And you talked about the 17-year-old rider in the US who spent 4 years doing lunge lessons. So we've got lunge lessons that are going to help to improve. But is there anything else you can tell riders on how to achieve sitting balanced and supple?
Yeah, I like, when I give clinic, for instance, I don't have directly the possibility to give lunging lessons, but often I say, here, do it, lunging lessons when I'm away, but sometimes it's not possible. Sometimes I do it, but most of the time I have riders on a higher level, but these riders have to get lunging lessons as well. Example, another sport is golf. And if someone wants to go out on the golf course, they always go before they put on the driving range. And I think that lunging lessons are like training on a driving range, just as an example. But when I, as an example, give a lesson to a rider who is part of my clinic, then I like it very much, and I did it with my kids. I have 3 kids, and I think they are not world class, but they are not too bad as riders. And especially one of my sons, 2 sons, Philip, and he is very, very often the best rider in Germany and abroad, and has a big stable and dressage horses and so on. And I think he has a very good position in the saddle. And what did we do? I did let them ride very often with one hand. I like it very, very much riding with one hand. And that's the best way to get a good feeling in the saddle. And you can do this in longing lessons, but this you can do in a ordinary, normal training session as well, riding with one hand. I always say, looking from the judge's point of view, but this is you have to train as a coach as well. If a judge has the feeling that the rider is able to ride the whole test with one hand, then give a 10. But if you have the feeling the rider needs both reins and both hands and the reins, then give a 0. That's the situation. You understand what I mean? So therefore, with one hand, because when you ride with one hand, it's a wonderful way to find a good balance in the saddle. The second thing is, what I like very much is, and that you can do in a perfect way when you give a longing lesson, close your eyes. Because longing lesson, nothing can happen. But I do this sometimes when I give an ordinary lesson or training. I say to the riders, now close your eyes, stay on the circle and close your eyes for maybe 20 meters or so, and then open your eyes and then again. But if you have a longing lesson, you can close your eyes for a longer time. Why? Because when you close your eyes, you get a very nice, but easier feeling for the feeling. And that's the goal, to get a feeling for the feeling. And that's a process. It's not just done, explain and it's done. No, you need a lot of time to get the right feeling for the feeling. And this is what we have to school, to get the right feeling for balance and using the reins in one hand. And okay, when you are on a high level, then it works. But when you are not on a high level, then it's fine to bring your second hand to the saddle. So, and put your hand into the saddle so that you find more and more the balance in the saddle. This helps, especially when you want to ride, for instance, medium or extended trot. It is so difficult to sit in these movements properly. So therefore, I think it's very, very important that we school it like this, both hands in one hand, and use the hand in the saddle, so that you find more and more your balance. And I like it very much to train, starting from rising trot and coming to sitting trot. And the best way to get a feeling for sitting trot is to do rising trot, and then the last steps before you start the walk. Other when you ride the transition into walk, I have to say first. And the last bit of maybe 20 meters, you start with sitting trot, both reins in one hand and one hand at the saddle, so that you are able to sit properly in the saddle. And this is for me very important. And this works when you have both reins in one hand. And this is something what I like to school, and I have really good success when I do it like this. And I think we need more and more situations that riders will accept to put one hand into the saddle so that they find the balance. And this is for me very important, and this is a very, very high goal. And when you have a rider on a higher level and you say, now you need longing lessons, and they say, no, I'm too good for longing lessons. No, never. No one is too good for longing lessons. And put your hands in the saddle. No, I don't need it. I'm so perfect. No, do it. Because most of the riders have problems with their position. Although maybe some world-class riders have no problems with the positions, but they need always lessons, and their trainers and coaches, and many coaches will explain and say, think this hand's too high, do this and this and this, and always looking into this direction. And therefore, I think to train our position is the highest goal, so we can say we are horse friends. And riding with one hand bringing the other hand into the saddle is for me a very, very good exercise. Another exercise is to give and to retake the reins. This is for me important. In the old days, we always said, okay, for the horse, so that the rider will see that the horse has a good self-carriage, a good balance, and is not leaning on the bit, and so on and so on. And I always think a second part is very important, that the rider will see in the situation when he is giving both reins that he is or she is sitting independent of the reins. Many people don't realize that they are using, during the whole training session, the reins to find the balance in the saddle. So therefore, it's for me very important to give and to retake reins so that the horses will find the balance. That's one point. And I, as a rider, will realize that I am sitting independent of the reins. And this is for me very important. And then when I would give longing lessons, you can do special exercises, riding without reins and doing special exercises. In Germany, we have a book, I think it's Balance and Saddle. Then the book is published in English as well, I think. And there are a lot of exercises which you can train and use, and these kind of exercises will help you are more flexible in the saddle than without doing these exercises.
Yeah, yeah. Christoph, another, sometimes he's saying to sort of bandied around like people understand them, but inside leg to outside rein, that's something that I hear coaches use, and I think, well, I can't see it when you're riding. Or tell us a little bit more about the inside leg to the outside rein, what we're hoping to achieve, and benefits for horse, benefits for rider.
Yeah, inside leg, outside reins is giving diagonal aids. I would say that's the explanation, or that's the headline of it. And it's another spirit of good riding. And if I would have been the question, what is the most important aids which a rider has to give? I would say it is the inside leg. The horse has to realize that the rider has to straighten the horse with the inside leg, because horses are not straight by nature. And the inside leg helps a lot to straighten the horse. The inside leg helps to bring the horse in front of the driving aids, mainly the inside leg. I would say maybe 70% inside leg, 30% the outside leg, brings the horse in front of the driving aids. And the inside leg is important to bend the horse. So this is important as well, though, the inside leg. So therefore, the importance of the inside leg. The second thing is important of the inside leg, looking from the rider's point of view and looking from the horse's point of view. And now looking to the outside are the diagonal aids. The outside rein has an important function, and the outside leg as well. The outside leg is, I would say, 5 centimeters, or maybe between 5 and a maximum 10 centimeters back. And the outside rein has to have not a strong, but a steady contact from rider's hand to the mouth. And this is for me important, that there is a steady but soft contact. And I want to underline the word soft. That's for me very important. Steady and soft. And that's, I would say, it's a little bit the guideline for the horse to stay on the line on which the rider wants to ride. Example, when I want to ride a corner, or when I want to ride a circle, a small one or a bigger one, or in cross country or in show jumping competition, I want to ride a turn. I have to turn with the outside aids, not using the inside rein. When I use, for instance, the inside rein, turn left, use left rein, then the horse would run to the right side because of physics. But when I use the outside rein in a combination with the outside leg, I'm able to turn to the left side. When I use outside, the right rein and right leg, I can turn to the left side. When I'm sitting, a little bit to the direction of the movement, and when I'm sitting a little bit more on the left bone, bring a little bit more weight into the left stirrup, then I'm able to turn. The more weight I bring to the left side, the shorter the turn will be. And we have to school very early that the rider will get the feeling to use the inside leg to activate the horse, to bend the horse, and to use the outside leg in the special position of the outside leg, which I had explained a minute before, and the outside rein to be able to turn. And this is very important, looking from this point of view, to ride a nice, smooth turn, and on the other hand, looking from the horse's point of view, to straighten the horse, because a horse which is not straight never will be a horse will be able for collection, and a not straight horse will be not able to jump straight, clear over a fence. Therefore, this is something we have to train very early, and this is something we have to explain our riders very early as well when we give our lessons.
Okay. I think
understandable.
Yes. I think that was a great explanation. Yeah. Now, you talk also about horses having a well-stretched neck for their balance. Can you just go into a bit more depth there and tell us, maybe talk even what we're looking for in a well-stretched neck? Like, we don't just want the horse poking his nose out and, putting his nose on the ground and having a long neck and a long rein or a loose rein, but a well-stretched neck for balance. Can you just talk about that a bit more, that terminology?
Yeah, that's another very, very good question, because this is at the end of the day a result of good riding. And I just said to a friend of mine who is in Germany responsible of publishing the principles of riding, and I said, to do this in a good way, normally you are not able to do it in the beginning of a training session or at the end of the training session, because you need a lot of good ways to come to this point. A lot of transitions and a lot of swinging to come to this point. And I want to explain it. And what are we looking for, looking from the judge's point of view and looking from the trainer's point of view? When I did say a good rider has to ride the whole test with one hand, that's 1 point. Give it 10. Another thing is when the rider is able to give rein and take reins. If a rider is able to ride the whole test with giving reins, give it 10. I explained it, black and white explanation. And the third thing is, if a rider is able to ride the whole test with a long rein, and give it 10. And long rein means that the horse is coming, and I want to explain now, forward, down. Important is the word forward and not just down. And that's for me very, very important. As many people think that down is no, forward down. You don't have to come too down with the mouse. And mouse, I think, is plus minus where the shoulder of the horse is, not more down. And this is a situation that all muscles of the neck, of the back, are stretched into the right direction. And for me, it's very important that the rider has to realize that we need first stretching and then flexion and bending. Many people say, okay, I have to bend my horse here and I have to flex my horse there. This will never, ever work. Important is that the horse is able to stretch the neck, before start to flex the horse. And very, very important that we have to realize that the situation of stretching forward down is the best way to give the horse a good feeling for balance, because a horse needs a well-stretched neck to balance his body. If the horse has a short neck, and therefore it was ridiculous listening and watching the discussions about German word is Rollkur, low, round, and deep. That's wrong. It is totally wrong. It's totally against the nature of the horse. Why? Because in this situation, the horse has no possibility of using the neck to stretch, or a well-stretched neck to find balance. And balance is one of the stones we need in the saddle and under the saddle. And when the neck is short, the horses are not able to balance. And to get the right feeling for balance, it's important for the horse to learn to stretch the neck. And this is especially in our situation now very, very important, because many horses have a very light throat latch, and therefore many horses are very short in the short latch, and we have to open the throat latch and bring the nose line to the vertical or a little bit in front of the vertical. That's for me very, very important. And therefore I am very, very happy when riders are doing this. At the beginning of the training session, it will be a little bit a challenge for some horses. During the session, it will be good to do it so that you are sure that your horse is supple and, in a good balance. And you have, I think, all over the world, we should finish our sessions in the way I just tried to explain it, in a nice way, stretching forward down the neck, and then we can finish our session. Just one sentence I want to add, very important, is that in this situation the horse is in a very nice way in front of the driving aids of the rider, and the horse has to maintain the same quality of the gaits in walk, trot, and canter when you give longer reins, and the horse has to be active from behind. It's not good when in the situation the horse is coming on the forehand. That's very important for me.
Okay. Now, you talked earlier about how important it was for the rider to have an understanding of the horse's nature and the body language. I know that you want them to have an understanding of the body language of horses. How is this going to affect the way that they ride and the rider's foundational training if they learn the body language of horses?
I think it's very important to watch horses in the fields, to watch horses when they are alone in the fields, to watch horses when they are with other horses in the fields, to watch horses in the stable, and to watch horses under the saddle in all different situations. And I think in the beginning, it is very important that there is someone who will explain the situation in the when the horse is maybe in the field, and explain it so that the rider understands that it's like to learn a language, a strange language, and it's the similar thing when you learn your native, your language in the country where you have been born. And that's a process. It's not just, we talk about body language and, what's it? It's like learning, like vocabularies you have to learn. So, and what do you have to look? You have to look at a feeling and an understanding to understand how, when you look into the face of the horse, how are the ears? How is the nose? Is the breathing? How are the eyes? Then you look to the body. Is the horse able to swing over the leg? Are the muscles up and down? What about the tail? What about the rhythm, the regularity? The skin, is it dry or is it wet after a couple of minutes of riding? And so on. And how is the reaction of driving aids? Are the ears back and is the horse stiff in the back in the moment when the horse, when the rider is giving driving aids, and so on. So therefore, I think there are a lot of key points you have to understand at the end of the day, get a feeling for these 2 points to be able to understand what the horse means, because the horse is not able to talk. We can talk now since maybe 1 hour or so. Horse is not able to talk with us, but a horse is able to demonstrate, to show his or her feeling, happiness and unhappiness in the special situations. And this is what we have to learn, and this is for me a very special skill. And we have learned these skills from the body language, better we are able to learn it, more we got good instruction about it, the better for us and especially for the horses, because we are able to understand them more and more.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The atmosphere, Christoph. You've talked before about how important it is to have that friendly atmosphere, coaching, riding, training. Tell us a little bit more about the type of atmosphere, the one that the horse thrives on and the rider thrives on, and what we can do to keep that type of atmosphere.
I think it's very important that the trainer is able to create a good atmosphere. If the trainer is creating an aggressive atmosphere, the rider, who is the student of the trainer, will ride aggressive with his horse. And the more friendly the atmosphere is, the more positive, the more the trainer is willing to understand the rider, the more friendly the rider will ride his or her horse. So therefore, I like to be a friendly trainer. I think that's very, very important, to be a friendly trainer, to train in a positive way and not in a negative way. And I think that's a key point. What we have to do, we have to do it in a nice way, in a way that, as you did as well, your first question was before you started the interview, how is your feeling, what's going on in Europe, Germany, and so on. You have to start, you have to find a way, come to the rider, because the rider is coming from the office, from family, has problems with the family, has problems in the office or in factory or whatever he's with. Therefore, the more you try to understand him or her as a person, the better the result will be when you train this person. And that's for me very important. That's part of the session, to ask a little about him or her, and then start the session. And then the rider will trust you more and more. And the more the rider is able to trust, the better the success will be, which you will have in the training session. So therefore, I think that's very, very important to do this into this direction and create an atmosphere. That's for me a high goal. And for me, very important is after the session to have a feedback. When I give clinics, I have always a feedback sessions, so that I, as a trainer, get a feedback, so that they say, okay, this was a little bit too aggressive here, or this was for me very difficult to understand, or I didn't understand it. And then I ask, what did you learn? This I did learn that. Then I said, okay, my goal was that you should learn this and this. Maybe we have to focus more next day on this. Therefore, this is part of it as well, the friendly atmosphere, and then the feedback as well. And sometimes the instructor, teacher, and coach, and so on, thinks that he or she is able to create a positive atmosphere, but maybe the rider says, no, I don't have the feeling that's a positive atmosphere. I think it's a very aggressive and a negative atmosphere, and so on.
Yep. So what can we do? This is for the rider to help with the foundational training for the rider to develop their skills. But as coaches, as judges, as trainers in training during competitions, what can we do to develop the communication better between the horse and the rider?
I think we have two steps to do, and I am a good friend of Linda Parelli and Pat Parelli. Linda originally coming from Sydney, natural horsemanship, and to be honest, in the old days, I had no contact with them. But the more I am in a good communication with them, and we did many seminars and symposiums together and summits together. Our main title is Two Worlds Are Coming Together. I'm coming from the classical point of view, or the riding part, and they are coming from the natural horsemanship point of view. And we come together, and then we see that they are not far away. And I think to get a communication is good to do it in the beginning and from the ground. The better the feeling is from the ground, the easier it is to start in the saddle. So therefore, both together is important, to have a good feeling at the ground and then to try to create a good feeling in the saddle. So both is important, and the more the horse had learned at the ground, the easier it is to do it from the saddle. The best working on the ground is not enough, and then the horse will be not perfect. At the end of the day, riding is a sport, and it's a sport for the rider, it's a sport for the horse. Therefore, you have to train horse and rider together in the saddle. But it helps a lot for the communication when the horse is trained in the beginning from the ground. And in between as well, not just from the beginning and later on as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Very good advice for a lot of people. Coming from someone with as much knowledge as you, Christoph, I think there's so many things that have been good, and this is the type of chat that I'm sure people will go back to and listen again and again, because each time it's one of those things that, each time they listen to it, I'm sure they're going to pick up something new. It's been very good talking to you. I've really enjoyed it. I think you've done more talking. I've just asked the question, so I've had it pretty easy. But yes, very good information. I've certainly been taking lots and lots of notes. Christoph, I've got to say thank you for your time. I hope everything continues to be okay over in your part of the world. I hope things improve worldwide as far as this virus goes, and we open up and things start to get back to normal.
Yeah, this I hope as well. I say thank you very much indeed. It was a pleasure to give some explanation. It was a pleasure to listen to your questions. Yeah, it's the right direction. Thank you. And I have the feeling that you have a good understanding from our sport, our lovely sport, the loveliest sport, I think, which we have in the world. And yeah, I cross my fingers for Australia, that everything will come back to normal and that we can travel in a couple of weeks again all over the world, maybe not as much as in the old days, but that we come back to normal and that we meet maybe next year again. I would love it.
Yes, that would be great to catch up again in person. That should be not just to chat. Good.
Yeah, would be great.
Right. Yes,
I would love to come back again, but you never know.
Okay.
Life is strange, and we only know what's going on today and in this minute, and next minute we can have a new challenge, and therefore we have to be flexible and look positive to the future. I hope you will do this, and all the other Australians will do it. And I like your way of living, and I like your country. I cross fingers for you and the whole country.
All right, Christoph, well, thank you for chatting, and hopefully we'll talk again very soon.
All the best. Take care.
Okay, bye-bye.
If you've enjoyed this chat, then please comment, rate and subscribe. If you'd like any changes or recommendations for guests, then please contact us through horsechats.com. And while you're online, have a look at the government-accredited courses at internationalhorsecollege.com. Registered Training Organisation 31352.
Remember that our comments and instructions are general in nature and do not take into consideration your individual horses or your individual ability and circumstances. If you enjoyed this podcast, then please leave your comment below.